Hello, Internet, thank you, and hello, our in-studio audience for coming from all over the world to join us here for 90 minutes today. I'm going to sit down so I don't kick or break anything. Welcome, Internet. It's nice to see you again. Welcome back to another episode of Chase Jarvis Live. We've got two left, this one and one more this year before we kick into the 2012 season. Is it a season, do you call it? I think it's a season. Amazing, amazing episode today. We're focused on the portfolio. We have one of the world's best portfolio reviewers. We have new technology coming out around that. And before I go there, I got to thank a couple of folks who have been tweeting like mad in preparation for the show today. Basically, we got two sorts of contests. One that ends right now, where you've been tweeting the URL for this, for the blog post, I think. And that goes to Kevin Benny, who has been tweeting like mad, and thank you so much, Kevin. What you get is a signed Polaroid of one of the images that I take today. We'll send it to you, so reach out to production@ChaseJarvis.com or contest@ChaseJarvis.com. We'll give you that. There's another contest that starts right now, drawing the line in the sand going forward. If you hear anything that you like today, like a cool phrase, then put that phrase with the hashtag CJLive and the URL for this live page right here. We are going to give away three, I don't know, they do it like that in Europe. 3 reviews, one live in person with Allegra Wilde, who is the most amazing portfolio reviewer in the world. I'm just about to announce her. And 2 with her new company called IAST.com, which is going to blow your mind. So I want to say happy birthday to my nephew today. Hi, Ryder. Happy birthday. I hope you're watching. So if I could park the front part of the show and now get on the meat of the matter, which is the way I know Allegra Wilde is from a very personal experience. I was at a point in my career, this is probably, I don't know, maybe 3 or, I might have to scratch that. I mean, 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah, she's back there going, it's more than that, Chase. It's like this many. And I was in a funk, you know, and I get questions all the time. Chase, do you ever get in a creative funk? And absolutely, yes. My portfolio wasn't where I wanted it to be. I wasn't feeling it. I didn't know what to do. And I got prescribed, a friend of mine, I don't remember who sent me to you, but they sent me to this woman named Allegra Wilde in New York. I spent a lot of time in New York. I knocked on her door, and she agreed to see me. And what she is a creative consultant, a portfolio reviewer, and it was sort of like therapy. It was sort of like amazing, powerful therapy when you're a flailing creative and you can get someone who has clarity, insight, and a level of understanding of photography that transcends your own and really understands the business of photography. It really changed the way I looked at pictures. It changed the way I looked at my portfolio. And I walked out of there, gosh, probably like 2 hours later, with my head completely in the clouds, spinning, going, what just happened? I feel like I'd have the best sort of cathartic experience of my professional career. I had clarity, I had vision, and then I just set off to execute. And that is what really has precipitated the last 7 or 8 years for me. So I thought it was sort of as a holiday gift to you because it was so powerful for me. She's not going to be able to give you the same kind of therapy she gave me globally. So you guys need to talk to her individually at one point or another. But it changed my personal and professional career. So without further ado, I would like to invite a big round of applause for my good friend, Allegra Wilde. Thank you.
Quite something.
Everyone, this is my therapist.
Right.
No, thank you for coming up from.
Thank you.
You were most recently in Los Angeles. We brought you up here today.
Thank you for having me.
So I really can't overstate. You know, I feel like I was laying it on pretty thick there for a second. I was tearing up a little bit, but I like that experience, and we had several sessions following that. it's sort of like not knowing if you have an ailing tooth and not knowing there's such a thing as a dentist. Like I had an ailing brain, my creativity was in sort of a funk. I didn't know where to go creatively because it was conflicted on two things. One, how do I make images that feel right to me, and I got a living, I got a staff, how do I pay for the world that I have to do? And you solved all those problems. How do you do it?
Well, first of all, for most people, including yourself, it's that you know all these things already. So it's not even a question of some divine voice coming out and saying, here's how you do it. It's like you just pretend you don't know. And
is it some sort of why do we pretend we don't know?
You pretend you don't know because it's almost like you know too much in a weird way. Is that you come to the business, you start taking pictures. I really like making these pictures. I think I'll go show them to somebody. And then you do that, and you get work, and you're like, oh, this is what I need to do to get work. Except that most people, and again, we're talking about portfolios here, is that they put the pictures, the jobs they just got, into their portfolios, and they think, this is great, I'm going to get more, and then they don't like their portfolios, and you forgot what you did in the first place to get the jobs, which is the pictures that you made that you didn't know any better, that came from your guts.
This sounds like my life. This really, and that's what you essentially, I can't say I'm cured, but that's what you helped cure me from. But let's rewind a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about your background.
Arc.
Yeah, what's your personal and professional arc with regard to photography? Because that's one of the things that is really important for any photographer who goes to see you, or again, your thing that we're going to debut, first time ever live in the world, we're going to debut this new project that you're put together to help connect photographers with reviewers. But I need to know that you're credible, and that I mean, it's kind of like, it's nice to get therapy from your grandmother, but someone who really thinks hard about this all the time probably has some insights that my grandmother might not. So,
I actually came from an interesting place. I worked in political campaigns, and I was one of the people in charge of effectively contriving the imagery, which is, the message we want to look, tough on crime, and what does that look like? So I had, well, right. I mean, we know that it's, and so I worked for various presidential campaigns, and began, really the only thing that I know how to do really well is to articulate what I'm seeing. And after, I had worked for Democrats for a really long time and not one, and so I found myself in an advertising agency in a sort of art buyer-ish position, and from there I went to the Black Book with the original owners, and they actually taught me how to read a portfolio and talk about what I was seeing. From there, when the workbook went national, I helped them develop their national base and was in charge of New York. Created a division there called Talent and Agent Branding, which was great. You bought ads in the source book, it's what are you going to show, and do you have the portfolio website to back it up? And
let me say what the workbook is, for those of you who don't know.
The workbook is a national directory of illustration photography.
Yeah, and you pay money to put your imagery in there, and
it's the most beautiful yellow pages there is.
Yeah,
we sent it free to art directors who would, look for photographers or illustrators that they wanted to hire.
It's called the source book, and it was very powerful, and especially in its heyday. I don't know if it's changed a lot because of the internet, and we can talk about that later.
We'll talk about that, yeah.
So you progressed through the workbook?
I progressed through the workbook and then went out on my own as an independent consultant. Concurrent to that, I started 2 online communities that were secret, private online communities.
So I know about these secret communities. I didn't know if you were going to talk about it today.
Well, you can't get in them, but I can't let you in.
Can I tell what the secret is?
Yeah,
so it's a secret club of art buyers.
I have 2 of them.
2 of them.
I have one that is...
Boys and girls?
No. I have agents in one, and I have art buyers and photo editors in another one. And so what I get to watch is this exact, point of sale, really, which is the point of transaction, which is the reps are, here's what we're selling, here's what's going on in the business, production and money and usage and all of that. And at the same time, I get to watch the art buyers saying, hey, does anybody know of, a great lifestyle shooter in the Northwest? And so, right? And so when I'm watching how their peers respond to each other, it's really fascinating how they think, what they think a documentary photographer is, why it's hard for photojournalists to get advertising work. I mean, it's all really fleshed out in there. So I've been able to have this kind of incredible overview.
And the fact that you're touching all sides of the business, that's really what, because I think as a photographer, I came in saying, okay, well, how do you know about me? If you can say, I know art buyers, okay, that's one thing, but that's not the only people that I'm targeting. You also know photographers very intimately from working with the workbook. So you're on, I usually say both sides of the equation, but you can kind of say all three sides of the equation, because there's sort of the picture researchers, the buyers, the sellers, the photographers, and the sellers are, the buyers and sellers are kind of agent or art buyer, depending on who's buying what from whom.
Right, and suffice it to say, it's been really hard to come up with the elevator speech of what I do. I mean, you know, my parents don't know what I do, because there's not a thing, you know, I had to kind of make my own job. However, I have some very, very esteemed colleagues who are also consultants. We know that photographers often don't have the words. And it's particularly with photography, many photographers tend to isolate in their studio and uncomfortable with things like competition and marketing and self-promotion, present company excluded, of course.
Hey. Well, that's one of the things that I really learned a lot from you. Actually, I'm going to take myself and hopefully you with me on a little journey, because I remember sitting, it's almost like I should have been on the couch, you know, in the therapy room. And I was like, I don't know what to take pictures of. I've done, you know, all this sports and lifestyle stuff for a long time. It's starting to feel like, you know, it's like I'm just sort of in the mill. And how do I change that? I don't, you know, what kind of work do I, and I'm still getting tons of work, but one of the things I was noticing is that, and I often coach people out of this because I was my own victim, that when you're not doing a ton of personal work, what you end up having in your portfolio is a bunch of work that was assigned to you.
It's collaborated. Yeah. It's impure.
It's completely impure. It's I can't say, was it the opposite of unadulterated? Adulterated?
Yeah, it is adulterated.
Sure, there you go.
Right.
So it's like it's compromised, and not, I mean, not in an evil way, but it was just like I had been making the work, and the irony was that I was so freaking busy. I was swamped. I was traveling all over the world and earning tons of coin, and my book looked like a pile of hangers.
This is very, very common. Often when I begin a consultation with somebody, and I can't take credit for this, there's a fantastic book called Zag, which talks about counterintuitive marketing, that's written by Marty Neumeier, who also wrote The Brand Gap, and I recommend that you take a look at it. But he, in the beginning of the book, you have to define this thing, which is, I am the only, in this case, photographer that what? Now, you can't say I solve problems, you can't say, you know, everybody says the same thing. But
I'm here for you, clients.
So I realized very quickly that the only thing that you have that somebody else can't appropriate, or you can't buy it, you know, B&H, is what's in your gut. Okay, and so how do we articulate that? And not necessarily in words, but what is in the portfolio. And the reason for this is most reviewers, most consultants, most art directors probably, is that the subconscious looking at work, you're wishing, please God, make it so I've never seen any of this before. And so often we are disappointed in that search, is that, yeah, you know, they're stereotypical images. Okay, so when I'm looking at books, I'm thinking, what is it about this person's work that makes it theirs? Because, and it's not about romance so much, it's really about marketing, because if you look like a lot of other people, you get the job less of the time, right?
That should probably be retweeted, I don't know. I'm just saying.
I've written at this, and so you think, okay, here's what the market is doing, I'm gonna go do that, because here's what they're buying. And you're in a, you know, portfolio slam with 100 other books. If you're unknown,
oh yeah, then you're smoked.
Right. I mean, so in that case, in any, you know, free market economy, we have a lot of stuff that looks alike. What does the buyer do? They go with the cheapest one, they go with the one they used before, or they go with the one that was referred by somebody else.
Yeah, and breaking out of that cycle that's the challenge, because it takes a lot of personal will and conviction to be different. I've talked about that a lot, and I use your words, which is you have to take a picture that no one else in the world can take. And what you so clearly meant, I mean, it was in the if you guys have seen my little documentary about Dasein, the 6 weeks that I spent in New York studying the snapshot, that's the opening line, I think, or one of the opening paragraphs is, you have to take a picture that no one else in the world can take. That's what's different, that's what makes it unique. And the picture that's different, it usually has to do with something that's in here, a way you see and feel the world. Because if it's about something that's out there, there are 50 other photographers that were at the scene having the same camera, probably even the same camera with the same lens, the same angle. Right. And like you said, you just get lost in the flood, right?
I mean, that's correct.
How can you do something different? What is the key to doing different? I call it, you don't have to be better, you should be different.
No, you should be you.
There you go.
Because that's the fingerprint. It's the DNA, and this is all very lofty, and and you and I, when we were together, we did this interesting exercise. So if, for the most part, if we believe that all images that people respond to across the board, advertising or in a gallery or in a museum or whatever, have some emotional terseness to them, and what most people do is they approach picture making from a very outside in way, which is to say, oh, you have a really great face, I want to do something. Or they write even a narrative in style, like we're gonna have a family washing the dog on the whatever that is. And then, or what an amazing location, I'm gonna do something here. What's fascinating, and I came up when I gave Chase this issue of Aperture magazine. It's about 12 years old now, and the whole
issue number 10.
Issue number 10. It's called Delirium, and I happen to really love this word because it's ecstasy and insanity, but it works with all kinds of other words too. If I said to the internet now and the audience in this room, think of a picture that is about delirium, or compassion, or lust, or delight, what you make in your head in probably about 4 seconds is only made from you. You didn't make it from outside influence, you didn't make it from looking at another picture, and there is some really important raw material there. And so you could sit there and write, 10, 20, 30, I mean, I usually do talk about this word compassion, because it does cross all of the market genres, et cetera. And the image that I always show, and you guys can go look this up, is an image made by Tim Flack, the amazing animal photographer out of London, of 2 bats. And and I found out much later that is the title of the image, because it's his interpretation of it. It's absolutely, because these core emotions are understood and recognized by everyone.
Yes.
Now, whether it resonates or not, that's up to different. You're not going to work for 25,000 people. We talked about this yesterday. You're going to work for
This is a great point. So I just sensed, I heard sort of all around the internet, everyone put their feet up on the couch when you started talking about picture delirium, and that's what you should shoot, because people all fall into the first category. Oh, there's a cool location, a cool car, a cool model. Like, all of a sudden, none of that matters. And that is a major thing to wrestle with. Now, what is the feeling, the emotion, the key thing that you want to say to the world, and how do you say it? And then you can say, this particular model would be great, this particular location would be great, to say the thing that's inside you. Big difference.
Right.
And that, to me, was the
Right, and then so coming then into a portfolio review with a project or a body of work that was made this way, what we're going to do, the reviewer is going to do is say, okay, does the picture match what you think it does? And that has to do with your execution. I mean, I'm personally a huge hater of artist statements. Because often they tell me what I'm supposed to be seeing, rather than what you made, which is more important to me.
I struggle with people walking up. Before they even are in a gallery or a museum, before they even look at the art, they go up and read the plaque. why don't you stand back and take in the art? And then, oh, it happens to be.
Right. I mean, that's the easiest way to understand the whole artist statement thing is tell me what you made, don't tell me what I'm looking at.
Right, but that's, we need to, I'm gonna put the brakes on for a second and go back, because we started going down this path that I think is gonna be really insightful for the folks at home and the folks here in the studio audience, because it was for me, and still is, and that is the realization that as soon as you try and please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody, especially not yourself.
Correct.
So it was a big eye-opener when we had this big conversation, and you said the same thing in Delirium. You actually gave me a copy that it's up on my desk right now. Mm-hmm. And that was years and years and years and years ago. That's how powerful this was for me. And you said, look at how many people do you really need to like your work, Chase? Emotionally, you can want the whole world to like it, but how many do you really need to like your work? How many people, if they hired you, would it make to have a good year? And I was like, 12, 18.
Right.
And this is at a commercial scale where the jobs are bigger, the budgets are higher, but the work is a lot more in depth. And so it's not something that you shoot every weekend, for example. And if you do, that's perhaps nice, but it's also, you might be getting snowballed. Maybe the project's not big enough or important enough. Generally speaking, for me, 12 to 18 badass clients makes for a great year.
Now, to put this in context, in the United States, there are 18,000 people who can hire you to do an assignment in editorial, advertising, publishing, and so on. So it's really, again, you're...
You need 0.1% of those people. Is that 0.01? 0.01, yeah. I think.
It's basically, the portfolio, it's interesting, and sometimes I'll say, who's like the greatest creative director or magazine designer you've never worked for? And that's, and let's say I got you an appointment with them tomorrow.
Okay.
What do you bring them? Whatever that is, okay. That's the book. Now, you can put that out there and say, I've got all this equity in my market. I live in New Orleans. I've been taking food pictures and car pictures and whatever, but my market is going to not let me do personal work. And the fact is, again, you're not going to work for everybody. What you want is to put a succinct enough vision out there so that you have a choice. No, I don't want to do that. Oh, I'm not busy this afternoon. Sure. Most people don't have a choice.
Yeah, that's to create the opportunity for a choice, I think, is a beautiful way of looking at it. And when you think about, or when you encouraged me to put out there the kind of work that I want to get hired for. If you put work out that other people told you to shoot, you're going to get asked to shoot more of that work. And all of a sudden you're going to be railroaded. You're going to be, I only do this work. And like chances are it's going to continue to diverge away from your core interest. So when you say, what's important to you, what kind of work do you want to be making? And when you realize that you really only, of the 18,000 people that could possibly buy or license your images, you need to impress 18 of them. Or maybe you don't, maybe it's 50, maybe it's 20.
Okay, but,
sure.
but I mean, here's the thing, and this is something that Chase has understood very, very well. And there are consultants, to be fair, who differ with me on this. I do not believe in targeting. The only people who are targetable are those that you have worked with already, or those that you really, really, by individual name, really want to work with. When you sell something subjective, you cannot predict who's going to like it. This tells me that you need to promote the shit out of it everywhere, frankly. Again, because people respond for all different kinds of reasons. I have colleagues who will have consultant colleagues who will have their clients go through magazines and say, oh, I really should have been hired for this. I really want to shoot this. And I said, well, that's great, except you don't know what the art director saw. And for all you know, they saw a photo in that person's portfolio of a girl that looked like the person they took to their high school prom.
Right.
So it really is important to understand this. I did write a piece on this sort of love parallel here, which is,
piece,
you say, oh my, I really want to find somebody who gets me. And then your smart friend says, well, in order to be, understood, you're going to have to, put yourself out there and be yourself. And yes, you're going to have a lot of suitors who aren't right. And people might call you for the wrong reason, and it's really the same thing here. So to me, it's a quite logical marketing structure is everywhere.
I think I was quoted quite a bit recently for saying, you want to get more work? Shoot the work you love, pimp that work, repeat. And it's a very simple recipe, but the idea is it's taken directly from my influence, or your influence on me, which is as soon as I snapped out of it, I started doing super crazy personal projects, the ones that I'm still engaged in, songs for eating and drinking, get rock stars together, serve them dinner, record it, take pictures of it, share it with the world online. And I got the coolest campaigns because you know what? Most of the art directors that ended up hired me from that work, and they say, God, it was so cool. It connected with me emotionally, individually, and me knowing that you like to do that sort of stuff, that I can see your pictures are technically sound. That's like the get in the door fee, right? You can't have shitty quality. Right. But beyond that, there's this connection, and they know that I was shooting that from my heart. And the same goes with Seattle 100, with so many of the projects, the Dasein project, for example. Very, very, very true. And shoot what you love, pimp that work, like you said, promote the hell out of it, repeat.
A word about style, because this is sort of bandied everywhere, which is, you know, you've got to have a style. And frankly, it's ridiculous because clearly somebody can buy your style or your filter or your hose master or whatever it is now, you know, at any number of camera stores. You have to have content. People talk to each other about what you took a picture of, and then secondarily it's, you know, how, and there's this really cool this or color or whatever it is, but is what's so, you know, important to you that you had to freeze it in time so that you could look at it again. That's the core. I'm going to go to the phones, as they say. Okay. First of all, I'll start off here. So this has been a lot of high-level, high-powered, conversation between Allegra and I, but there's a lot of the stuff that I feel like it just is right on the fundamental level of how you should be approaching your work. Show of hands, I'll give you guys a chance to ask a question before I go to maybe Milwaukee or Zimbabwe here on the internet. I need to take one. Don't let me down here. Someone's got a question, and someone's scared to ask it. There you go. I knew you were. Take that mic right there and fire it. First of all, tell us who you are and where you came from today and what you got. What's the question?
All right, my question is, could you elaborate a little bit more on why you don't like artist statements?
Part of the problem is that they've become a little bit of a parody of themselves. I mean,
is that a Woody Allen film?
It's like the Marshall McLuhan moment, and you know, it's like you kind of talk yourself into a corner. What it's important to me is what your intention was, and it's up to me to sort of measure whether or not you achieved it. You know, you're visual people, and I think you can sometimes get tied up in intellectual knots and overthinking, and you can cheapen the viewer experience by overstatement.
Love it. Any other questions here from the audience? I'm going to go to the phones then. Why should we never put black and white photographs with color photographs?
Who told you that? Okay, it's ridiculous to even think that it's immaterial. Like I just said, the style, the process, it doesn't matter. It's what is it a picture of. You want to get to a place that you obviously know how to work everything in your toolbox, you know, in black and white, and that the subject will demand the delivery mechanism that you shoot it in. What happens is, and I think at the root of the question is, there are a lot of people give themselves sort of different artistic license in black and white than they do in color, and that the color pictures are somehow like more commercial, and the black and whites are more arty. But the fact is, it doesn't matter. Every idea will demand its own solution. You want to, and we'll talk about like how to make a portfolio browsable and have it have rhythm and torque to it, but it's completely immaterial.
I love it. Any other questions here? I'm going to the phones. I think I just took one from here, one from here. If there's anything besides the question, will this be repeated or available on YouTube, which a lot of people are asking right now. I would like to shift gears if I can.
Your show.
Yeah, sweet. I love that. So that's why I started my own show. So what we have is Dylan Priest. He is a photographer. He's based here in Seattle. And one of the things that I thought would really help motivate the audience to understand what it is that we're doing is for you to actually walk through his legitimate print portfolio, to see what a portfolio review looks like in person, to hear you give him advice, to watch him feel small, and then feel proud, and then feel confused, and like go through the range of emotions that you go through when you get your work reviewed. Because if you're making work in your basement and you're not showing anyone, it's highly likely that you're not going to get discovered, found, hired, whatever you think it is. So you have to put that work out there. And in order to put that work out there, ideally you show someone who has an opinion, because you show your mom, she's going to say, "That's a great photo, honey. I love it. It's beautiful. It's smashing."
Nice
But
accent.
thank you. But if it's to someone who's got a critical eye like yourself, I think there's a lot of something to be learned. If you're just joining us now, before we go to Dylan Priest, we're with Allegra Wilde, renowned portfolio reviewer from New York and Los Angeles. She's joining us. She changed my personal career trajectory, and she's here with a live audience and with a couple of photographers going to review some portfolios. She's going to debut her new online version of this, which is mind-blowing. So that's going to be in the third segment of the show. Huge thanks to Polaroid and B&H. And if you're watching right now and you can retweet anything that you hear that you like, that you want your friends in your social network to know about this show, retweet that plus hashtag CJLive and the link to this URL. We will be giving away 3 reviews with you, 2 online and one live. So it's a good way to get your work, and that's
2 online with IS, 1 also maybe online, but
with you,
with me.
with you. And so that should get the old internet fired up. And don't hesitate to ask questions. I'm going to be looking at the internet while you're talking with Dylan here, pulling questions out. If you guys have questions for these two, send them to me, hashtag CJLive at ChaseJarvis. But without further ado, let me introduce Dylan Priest. Welcome, Dylan. Thanks a lot, buddy. Nice to see you, buddy. Please have a seat.
Thanks.
Portfolio. So yeah, before we dive in, just give me a 60-second version. Yeah, I'm gonna have some cold coffee because it's a little cold in here today. It's like 29 degrees or something in Seattle. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
So our background, if I can try and recall it, is we've known one another just for a couple years, and casually through you were at a couple of our parties.
Yeah. I moved into the neighborhood where your studio's at, and we just kind of met, through events that you were having, the underground shooting walk days, and you had me come in and shoot your photo booth at one of the parties, the one that had the stop motion.
Yeah, the most photos ever taken in like 6 hours or something like that. It was like 25,000 pictures.
That was a lot of fun.
I've been watching your work progress since then, and when this came about, I thought that you'd be perfect for it. So just maybe a little, actually I'll let you take over, because then this is completely cold. Aside, you guys met, pre-show, you shook hands and high-fived, but you've never devoured his work and you've never had a review with Allegra. So this is going to be like live, what do you call it? Improv.
Well, also,
you're not
and
acting, so.
I'll do my best to speak generally about portfolio reviews kind of at the same time. But typically, and where we're going to start is when you go to a portfolio review at a photo festival, for example, the 20-minute sort of speed dating type, that generally speaking in person, while they're unpacking, you're saying, so how long have you been in business? And so tell me the story. What do you hope to get out of this? Where are you? What do you want?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Fairly new to Seattle. This is my about 4th year here, and it's just been a kind of a snowball effect of work and meeting people and just constantly trying to produce things that I love. So this book is kind of a culmination of the last year of work that I've been doing personal projects, a lot of portrait work and working with artists and musicians here in Seattle.
Okay.
And I'm hoping to get more editorial work as kind of what I've been working towards. Mostly I've been shooting e-commerce type work lately, product and on-figure photography. So I'm kind of hoping that this book will take my personal work to the next level of working
And
for clients.
how long have you did typically many emergent photographers spend time as assistant apprenticeship.
Yeah,
Did you
I
did
assisted for about 6 years. Just transitioned out of that earlier this year, actually about February. I finally stopped taking assisting jobs, and the market has been fairly good to me so far.
What do you do to promote your work and market your work and get your work in front of people?
Twitter, Facebook, my personal blog. I have a Tumblr, a Flickr. I work with a couple local music blogs, going on tour with bands, and then that kind of promotes my work.
And do you do any direct marketing, email blast, that sort of thing?
I do direct marketing to people that I've worked with before right now, but I haven't branched out to do.
And do you take meetings?
I do.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to give you some sort of structural notes at the same time that we look at the work. And these are really beautiful. This is a lost luggage portfolio.
Yeah, lost luggage is just a couple of doors down the street.
Right. It's really.
I want to encourage you guys also before you to make sure you speak loud enough that the internet folks can hear you fine, but make sure
sure.
these folks hear. I saw everyone leaning forward. So
Really great. Beautiful. One thing on some of these portfolios, by the way, with the metal, here's a little tip. You might want to file the metal sides here because they can tear pantyhose. And when you present your work,
That's a way to get
see, this is what
it's
you
a way
really
to
want to know.
close down that meeting.
This is going to
really,
get you
really
unhired
fast.
in
So,
a quick second, right? Like you tore the art director's
okay,
pantyhose.
so great. You have your name. I can't tell you. This is like the symptom number one. Of a problem which you do not have, which is a lot of people come to these reviews without their names on their portfolio, and that there's something up with that has to do with like not owning the work, or like in case you don't like it, it's really not mine, or something like that. So I'm not going to worry about the cameras here. We're gonna
You guys should actually ignore me. I'm just going to creep into the corner, and I may fire him with some questions from the
Okay,
internet.
I'm gonna, the way I always do it is, and you're gonna have to bear with my silence here, is that I look and then I talk. But for those of you who aren't touching this, it's really nice paper, it's really nice printing. Tell me how you arrived at this landscape format. Shows.
I tend to shoot landscape, even in my portrait work, and I find that it's better to show my work in this way. It's easier to have full bleed to get a big image so that you can really kind of dive in to what it is, sort of like being able to zoom in, digitally. Since you can't do that in a printed book, it's nice to have it as big as possible and have it go all the way to the edge of the paper. And that way you really get the colors kind of pop out more.
And what the work that I'm looking at, what percentage of it is personal? There's really actually three categories here. It's personal versus client work versus work that you made because you think it will get you a client.
It's pretty much personal work. There's only a sprinkling, mostly these band images at the beginning that I was hired to shoot those from the people. It's got one magazine image that was a cover earlier this year, this one right here. And then the rest is just kind of projects that I've kind of put myself out to do, and just so that I can meet people, and I like to tell stories through my imagery.
What stories are important to you?
Kind of the personal stories with people and with the people that I try to connect with and what they're doing in their lives, or,
and what do you want to say about that? I know that I'm grilling you.
Yeah.
But,
This is the part where she's going to start jabbing you. It's all been fun and games, so now the gloves just came off.
With the musicians, I kind of want to tell their backstories and where they've come from and what inspires their work. And these pictures of people in their homes, as musicians in their homes, it's a series I call Artists at Home. And that I want to bring people into how these people live their lives and how they, what might inspire their music or their art. I hope to branch out of just musicians and do more artists in Seattle.
okay. So none of that reads.
All right.
It's listen, and again, like Chase said before, we have no executional issues at all. This is beautifully executed, beautifully photographed. One of the things, and again, remember in the beginning I said, what I'm trying to do is to see what I haven't seen already. And this sort of artists in their context, their studio or with their stuff, it has been really, really done. And unless the stuff around them is so specific and personal, and you're like, holy shit, it does get mushed in the cloud of what they call environmental portraits. Right. Gets lumped. I think that you have the beginnings. I'm looking also at the emotional range of the book, because basically what we want is like an emotional roller coaster. I don't think this is the right format for you. Oh. I don't. I think that you could use some airspace around. I tend, and this is, again, we all have our personal styles, but I tend to want some torque in the spread, some friction in the spread, and so that, I don't know if you can all see this one, but they're a little bit matchy.
Yeah, let me comment about that. So the folks know, you can, we've got a camera overhead that like matchy is a good word for it, I think, but if we can, we'll cut to that, and you can maybe iris down a little bit. I don't know if you can there, Eric, but so D'Artagnan he'll be scrolling through Dylan's images so that people at home can see them as well, because he's got his portfolio loaded there. And then you guys can just proceed as you will. Okay. There'll be an overhead camera kind of swinging in. It'll be a mix between the overhead shots and your book live online, just the full bleeds in what the folks at home are seeing. So pay no attention to us here. We're just watching you guys get together.
So what people do is that they look at this side, and then they look at this side, and then they sort of marry them into some image that floats above the book somehow. There's no other way to explain it. But what happens is that they in this case, where they're close, you lose them as individual images. So you want a really strong statement here, a really strong statement here, and then you get this third thing, that, like I said, floats above the page. What you'll see portfolios where that's like, this person has a hat and this person has a hat, and you're like, I see absolutely nothing but hat. Is that, we want to say that. Yeah. A couple of general notes. I think you could be a little bit more aggressive. Personally, I find the most powerful portraits the ones with very, very little context, because you almost have no choice but to deal with the face, the emotional content, and the delivery of that. And so to me, I think you're better off not having accoutrement, because you really can cut to the chase. A word about, like, I think this is really lovely. I like this one. I don't love this one as much. I like the imperfection. And the other thing too is that, after so long, any experienced reviewer can kind of tell the ones that are personal and the ones pretty much they can. And what happens here, and again, this happens on websites too, is you're not making a clean sale, because you're not having a place in the portfolio that says, I did all this for work, and you're not getting a clean representation of your pure vision, which could be really pushed here. Really, they're a little safe. I need you to peel your skin off. I mean, the best portfolios really are self-portrait, 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 self-portrait. Yeah. That's how we separate you all. That's how we get to know who you are. So what's happening here, along with that, which could be improved, is the cycle of getting a job is you need some creative director or art director, somebody in photo editor who's in charge to be like so hot for you they can't stand it another minute until they shoot for you, and they get really excited, and they take, because it's so personal, it's so raw, and they take that portfolio into the client meeting. The client says, oh, well, have you ever actually done this before for money? And there's no place to make the sale. So that in here, the personal vision is watered down because it's mixed up with the commercial stuff. And the commercial sale is watered down because it's mixed up with the personal stuff. So what this means is in a portfolio, one solution to that is that the whole portfolio should be personal, like I said, self-portrait, self-portrait, self-portrait. And then at the end of the book, I personally like to do a spread of thumbnails, small. They don't really read, in fact, but there are a lot of them. And they could be from your, a newspaper picture you took in high school. Because the creative director, the person who got so excited to champion you, needs a tool to close the deal with the client. We want to use the front end think of it as your future and your past. The past part, which is, here are all the jobs I've done, don't worry, I'm not going to screw up your production, and look at all these big name clients, is about credibility and capability. But it's not about romance. The book, it's about romance. Yeah. And I gotta be next to this person. Furthermore, and we didn't talk about this before, but I wanna say this and I'll say more about it later, is that remember that the soul of repeat business, when you work with somebody, is that they liked being with you, and you had a good lunch, and you're fun, and you played great music, and all of that. But how do we communicate the experience of being with you before they hire you? And that is another argument for the personal pictures. Is they can see like what you want, they can get you. It's like, oh, we can be stuck on location in a desert for a week together. We've got something, going on between us. Yeah. But you're not reaching out to them as people you want to hang out with, and they you. So it's good. The other thing here is that there's some projects in here, right? Because I see some, looks like contents of people's pockets, and I think this is a great story. I have seen it before, but it's a great story. But if I were to just see the stuff, I would never be able to articulate the face of the person that it belonged to, because it's pretty generic. Right. So if we turn this around, let me give you an example. If you were to photograph the vanity table of a stripper who had a 2-year-old, single mother, what does that look? I mean, that would read in a second. Right. Like, what is that?
Awesome.
And well, right. I mean,
no.
Let's take a mythical, person like I don't know, like Lucille Ball, whatever, is that people are identified by, if you're going to show their stuff, you got to show the stuff they don't want you to see. We need to see you don't want to see, too.
So that's really the message, though, is like, dig deeper. And when you are trying to take pictures of the contents of someone's pocket, it's a powerful idea. But I want to know what I feel like I'm sensing in the conversation here is the picture that you took was convenient for you to take that picture. It's your girlfriend or your friend, like, hey, dude, I want to photograph the contents of your pocket. You didn't go out and saying, what am I so curious about? Like, is it strippers
tell me your dirty little secret.
Is it strippers with 2-year-olds? Is it, like, whatever the thing is, like, I want to know that Dylan Priest went to the end of the earth about something he was incredibly curious about, like, what's in that homeless guy's pocket? What's in the woman who's the president of this company's pocket? And I had to kick, bite, scratch my way in to this particular company and like talk her into laying the contents, and then I photographed it. Like, to me, that shows your intense curiosity. And then those pictures are going to be way more powerful than your buddy, your sister, your mom.
I know we have to move on, but I do want to say one other thing, and this will, I think, just one important tip, is that you're shooting your friends. This is a problem. It's
you can have
messy.
no friends left if you keep shooting them.
Well, it's messy in the Chase, and I'm sure because everybody comes up doing it that way, but they have an agenda, and I think it infects you, not you, but most people. And so that I do recommend for those of you doing portraits and doing lifestyle is one of the things that can be really beneficial is to not shoot your friends, number one, and to try to shoot with actors over models, because actors make a study of understanding what you mean, a certain method, whatever their training is that you can say, you know, talk to me about, you know, this or that, you're breaking up with your boyfriend or whatever, and there's no agenda between you. So that's one recommendation.
I love it. I love it. So this will probably continue after the show is over.
I promise.
We want to keep moving along, because we got some other things. But before I do, I like taking a picture of my guest. This is with the new Polaroid Z340 camera. So would you guys lean together to commemorate this amazing day? So this is a digital camera. It's just out now. Snapshot here, and zero ink paper is going to come out there just like the old-timey Polaroid. So I'm going to set that down and go to the phones. Thank you so much. You stay right there, because there are some questions. In part for you at first. iPad portfolios, what do you think of them? And let me see who, that came in so many times I can't really name a Twitter person.
I'm sure. First of all, again, here we are doing a paper portfolio review. The fact is that even the agents are saying, I hardly ever send out a printed portfolio anymore. So we really are talking about the buying audience, at least, is vetting you at the first round via the web. So now we have two scenarios here. One is, are you sending an iPad, because people do that? Are you going and showing the book? The most important thing, and I personally don't care which it is that you are able to maintain your visual equity in either. In other words, I'm seeing your logo, I'm seeing your beautiful typography, I'm seeing your design that looks like your website, that looks like the crack and peels on your portfolio, that looks like everything. So again, that's called establishing visual equity, name, style of name, design with images. It's really critical, and the benefit of a portfolio is that, and it is true on the iPad also, about it can skew on an iPad, which is you want to control the order, and you want to control the experience of how they see your work, and not let them cherry pick.
Because they will.
Because they will, and that is one of the problems on the iPad. So you want to. It's like a DJ with Segway. The sequencing is very, very critical, and so that is the one drawback. In person, these reviews are generally, do I have good pictures or not? What am I doing with them? Can you suggest a presentation? I mean, print a book, please print a book with the folks at Blurb or whatever. But
it's good. It's a good idea then to go through the exercise of having that. And I have a couple of those. They occasionally go out. 90% of it is I'm screened online. They look at the pictures. I love this. And then they'll either call you in, call your book in, and if I'm called in, I either bring electronically or sometimes my big old leather-bound book. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of a feel thing, and there's a conversation that's going on. I'd like to bring in this, is this appropriate? And they'll say, no, just bring in something digital so that we can, and usually my conversations are pretty like on the table, but I don't know what your experience is.
I feel like the iPad in particular, that you do suffer a bit experientially, and because the website is, people tend to pay attention to the organization of it, departmentally. Right. So what you lose is that overall sense, even if you had project, you lose that overall sense on an iPad. It feels like website light.
Yeah.
Well,
there are apps. To be fair, there are apps that you can control the flow, so that might solve the problem. But generally, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
You see less of the really big picture, the overview.
So let's ask another question: Flash versus HTML5. So my particular website's in Flash. I've been with Livebooks for a long time. They are a kick-ass provider of big, fast pictures. I know they're in the process of upgrading to HTML5. Do you care? You just want big pictures fast. And it's a pain in the ass.
Do you remember
probably.
Before when we were talking about like the technical part and the teacher voice in the Peanuts cartoon that's going wah, wah, wah? I have no idea what you're saying, so you could talk to Doug when he comes in.
That's great, and that has been a very popular. That's been a very, very popular question. And in fact, people went to Tim Flack's site, and it was Flash, and they didn't do it for them. Tim's work is freaking amazing. So there are people who are hung up there, And I think the message is that you just don't want to have your website be the thing that trips someone up. Make it usable, make them be able to get big pictures fast. Great, go ahead and question. We got to give you a mic here real quick. There you go, there's the mic.
What about the quantity of your portfolio? I'm sure you could overwhelm somebody if you send too much. So
In a printed?
Printed, or if you're sending in.
You know, everybody asks me that. I mean, I've done portfolios, with 60 pictures, and it depends how you organize it. I mean, again, there are many people who materially shoot in stories, so all the way around an idea. And if you had a portfolio that really ended up at 60 pictures, but each sort of little chapter or riff was 8 to 10 pictures, it doesn't feel as big. You can probably, most of them, it's probably 40 pictures is doable. And again, remember, now if you take the pressure off selling, like I said before, in that front of the book, and you reduce all the jobs you did to a page of 40 thumbnails in the back.
One page at the back.
Or spread
Right.
in the back of 40 thumbnails, you've got a lot of mileage out of that portfolio. And as I said, they really don't need to read. They just need to say, I'm busy and expensive, and don't worry, you chicken, I'm not going to screw up your job.
It's a great way of saying it. It's like show, don't tell. Here's all the people that I've worked with.
Just a fast read.
Sure, and there are a lot of people online who are saying, well, I haven't worked with that many people. Should you show, if you've only got 4, should you show the 4? Is there some critical mass?
You should show as many as you can, one page, or just wait.
Got it.
Just wait.
Got it. Another question that's coming in right now, actually, boy, they're pouring in. So is it bad or weird to have actual self-portraits in your portfolio? This is from Mary Gobble.
I actually work with a client, really fantastic photographer. His name is Dan Peebles, out of Albuquerque, where almost his entire portfolio had him somewhere in the pictures, and it actually became sort of a thing. And it was very honest work, and really naked work, and he is indeed naked in some of them.
Really naked work.
Really naked, and people, it was sort of became how Alfred Hitchcock always shows up in his film. It was sort of that thing. But again, it doesn't matter if
the work is deep and personal and real.
And most of the time, you're not meeting with people in person anyway, and they're not going to know that it's you.
If you're just tuning in now, I'm Chase Jarvis, and we're live here on Chase Jarvis Live with Allegra Wilde, world-renowned portfolio reviewer, creative consultant, and she's sitting here with Dylan Priest, photographer. They just reviewed Dylan's print portfolio. We're taking questions live online at #CJLive, at Chase Jarvis, or at Allegra Wilde, ALLEGRAWILDE. And Dylan, you got a Twitter handle?
Yeah, DTP Photo.
DTP Photo. Okay, that's great. Any questions here in the studio audience? That was a great question, by the way. I really, really liked that. It had to do with the number of pictures to be shown. Yep, at the back. Let's pass that mic over to the back row there. And I'm still taking you online here too, so fire away while
My
we're...
name's Dan O'Brien, and you talked about a rift or torque in the portfolio. Is there kind of a beginning, a middle, and an end? I mean, you already discussed the end to some extent with the thumbnails, but what about the other kind of aspects of it?
The design of how to make a book browsable.
Flow of it.
Flow, I think, is what he's talking about.
You're talking about, okay, the first thing to remember is that people look at it backwards and forwards. So the front has to be the back, and the back has to be the front. Again, everybody has a stylistic, in those of us who edit and sequence books. Personally, everybody's work demands its own house. Do you shoot serially? Do you shoot all the way around an idea? You want to show those together? I tend to think that you do. Are they titled? Are they chaptered? That's really individual, taste. But it does make sense, particularly if you're looking at advertising, and again, this sort of cinematic narrative way of doing it. So you do want to show the series intact as long as the pictures do not look too much exactly like each other, because then you're like, oh, we say it in the same picture over and over again, or it's the same. We see this happening in fashion really in the beginning when people can't get models and they're just getting established, and you're seeing the same girls and guys in every single image in the book. But what you want is really exactly what I said, this emotional range throughout. So you want to look, sometimes I'll just look, it's like, every single picture in here, it's absolutely flat, straight line mouth. It's pout and smirk and pout and smirk, and it's like, really, and each genre of photography, and if we have time, I can talk about them, in terms of portraiture, in terms of sports, et cetera, like where you want to be thinking. But the idea of the serialized work, it does sort of telegraph the idea of campaign, which is really, really good to be able to do, particularly if you're looking in the advertising business. Like I said, I like opposite. I love this sort of, look at the way that you compose imagery and pair them that way. What are the angles? Where are the diagonals? Like, where's the reflective? Where's the positive, negative? And to get some tension between them.
I like all that. I want to fire off a couple of questions in rapid fashion. We got to move to the next segment of the show here pretty quickly. Beautiful job. So if you tune in, we're taking questions at #CJLive. Question comes in from Jeff Chang Photog. What's the best way to organize your portfolio online? Is it compartmentalized, categories, all together? What do you think?
Okay.
Give me a 30-second answer.
Okay. For most people, assuming that if they look at one thing on your portfolio, it's going to be something called portfolio. So you do want best of, greatest hits, strongest work, leading department. This is, again, everybody's not the same, but generally speaking, you want something called portfolio. You want, if you shoot, like I said, serially, you want something called project, submenu, name of project, name of 4, 5, 6 of them. You want something called client work, which is just the same way that we talked about it in the portfolio. You want a place to make the sale, job, run it through like a straight portfolio, like you did with the thing called portfolio, which should ideally be all your personal work. A second place for client work where you can make the sale.
Personal work, client work.
Then about
divide and conquer. I see that. Right. Beautiful. Well, the phones are going off the chain here. I know there's a couple hands up that we have to move on to the next segment of the show. And the next segment is very technologically interesting for me because I think one of the projects you're doing here is very, very disruptive. It has to do with taking what we just saw here and putting it online. So instead of having Dylan come up or you come up from Los Angeles, put you guys together face to face, you can have a similar experience with an art director in New York or with a creative consultant in New York, and Dylan could be here in Seattle. And you've been working on a technology to do this with a partner of yours, Doug DeWeer, who's in-house with us, and you guys have a special announcement about IS.com. So welcome, Doug. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Please have a seat here. Wow. Okay. So we had a great dinner last night at the Walrus and Carpenter, and so I have the privilege of knowing a lot about you. But for the sake of the folks at home, you have an amazing history with technology. You described it growing up listening to a teletype right next to your head.
My father was a technologist, and I grew up with it. It was like just part of my existence since I can remember. I described last night at dinner was that the idea of going to bed with a teletype machine rattling off by your head in your bedroom is just something I thought all kids experienced. But that eventually evolved into becoming really engrossed with programming at a very early age. I was at the point where the first microcomputers were hitting the market, and there really wasn't any way of developing for them, and there was no way of recording medium, so I actually learned how to program the chips in the microcomputer, wrote the application, and swap the chips.
True, like super genius. I can't program the computer yet, so I'm going to program the little thing that goes in the computer.
Yeah, exactly.
Much respect. So you leverage that sort of a history into what I consider to be a very, very impressive resume. We talked last night about building two things that people would know about. Extensys Portfolio was basically the definitive sort of enterprise level image catalog system for the world for some time, and you were responsible for that, and also Fetch. You remember that program that was very, very hot? It's kind of had its heyday a little bit, but it's still in use as an FTP program, and everybody I know used it.
Correction, it's multi-ad Fetch, which is what morphed into Extensys Portfolio.
Oh, there you go. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how that is really relevant to what we're just about to talk about, which is IST.com.
I usually get involved with large print or publishing related projects. And one of the things I learned at a very early age is asset management can make or break a business. There were projects I was involved with where the artists could draw it again faster than find it because they had so much content accumulated. And I whipped together this little utility for managing content, and after it was over with, all the big companies were interested in that little utility, that throwaway program.
Got it.
Because it solved a very critical problem for a very large audience. And from there, it went on to the web. In fact, that's where I met Allegra over 15 years ago, was the workbook. The publisher contacted me and said, you know, I want to take the workbook, which is this definitive standard in print, and take that experience online for people, and that's what I did for her.
Well, beautiful, and that has transitioned to something that I think I'm very, very excited about. I'm kind of on the edge of my seat here, and actually, I just noticed, Dylan, where are you? I got this great Polaroid that came out of you two guys. It's pretty cute. Where are you, buddy? You want to hand that to Dylan for me?
Party favor.
Yeah, party favor. But I'm very excited to be a part of you guys telling the world. This is a small group of people in New York got to see a demo. We have about 25 minutes left in the show, so I want to get this thing moving, but it's called Eyeist.com.
Eyeist.com, E-Y-E-I-S-T.
E-Y-E-I-S-T, and the short version, I'm going to put my words in your mouth for a second, then you're going to tell me how I blew it, is you can basically connect the world's best photo portfolio reviewers with the people who want to have their work reviewed online at a fair price.
In real time.
In real time.
In real time. That's an important distinction because there have been many people who have tried to do portfolio reviews not interactively. It's like send it in and we'll write some notes and send them back to you. But as you saw a few minutes ago, 95% of it is the back and forth that goes on between an experienced reviewer and the artist who wants to ask questions or hear, read the body language or read what's being said. And that was a real challenge, is how do we keep that part of the review process alive, but yet put it online?
This is, it's very disruptive. It's very, very cool. I know there's all kinds of huge portfolio. I mean, there's entire businesses that are made and lost, I guess, in the portfolio review world.
Correct. There's obviously, look, we know that there are a lot of people taking pictures. We know that there's a lot of photo sharing and that there's an enormous explosion in photo commentary on Flickr, certainly, and other sort of graduated from Flickr kind of sites like 500px and Behance, et cetera. So there's a lot of photographer commenting on photographer. We also know that the photo festivals, and like you said, there's an explosion line out the door at these I call them these trade show portfolio reviews. They really look like speed dating. It's table to table, 20 minutes, 50 or 60 bucks per session. And we noticed that you have to fly there. Yeah. And that the experts were more than happy to go and do it. Obviously, we want to hang out with each other, but we all want to see new work. We all love photography and talking about photography, but that it wasn't accessible to everyone. Everywhere, 24/7.
And that is the basis of Creative Live, one of the company that I was a co-founder of, which is right next door, of democratizing this process, making it accessible to those who wanted to get their portfolio reviewed, maybe didn't have access to you or Kathy Ryan or some of the other folks who are the best in the world.
Right.
This man built it. Your vision, those two things collectively created Eyeist.com.
Well, together with my partners, Jesse Diamond and Micah Diamond.
Jesse and Micah, who couldn't be here today,
watching.
mostly because we didn't have enough room on the couches. But if we could take a second, so we uploaded some work. Yeah. There's a photographer that we have joining us today. His name is Ray Spady. Why don't you help me welcome Ray onto the show today.
How you doing, sir?
Buddy, I'm well. Nice. You're gonna take a picture of you there. Sweet, with the Polaroid. Thank you. Have a seat. Sorry, don't sit on my coffee. So, give me the short and dirty about your particular body of work and what it is you do as a photographer.
Okay. Well, basically, I'm all about helping musicians get gigs and keep them. So, as a photographer, I'm taking pictures live at concerts and portraits. And as a business guy and a web developer, I'm building a tool that helps musicians be more organized and manage themselves.
Got it. And photography is key to basically everything you just said right there. Whether you're connecting them via this tool that you made online, or whether you're helping them get gigs, because it's a very visual and it's auditory, of course, but
Absolutely.
like they need to look like musicians and you help them with their album covers and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
So what we did is we uploaded your images to a demo version, an alpha version of is.com, which I should say right now, if you went to is.com, don't leave us, but if you went and checked that out, there's a space to put your email in so that when this comes out of alpha into beta, that you will get notified. So my name's in there. I'll probably get a personal call from you guys. If I don't, I'll be pissed. But that's where you can go there and put that in that little piece of information there so that when this is hot to trot on the internet, we get to see it first. But would you step up and walk us through some of the features here? I'm going to keep us moving along. And again, this is Ray's work, so thanks again, Ray, for contributing.
Absolutely.
Play musical chairs.
Yeah. So yeah,
this is alpha. This is what you would see if you go to, as Chase said, is.com right now, leave your name and number, and we'll get a hold of you when things are ready to go. First thing I want to talk about is, I'm just going to quickly go through some of the elements of the site. The reviewers, I mean, that is the product. That is the thing that makes IS unique. And Allegra can talk a little bit more about the vetting and recruitment process.
So we looked across the board. What we wanted were people who were well known in their areas of expertise, either by affiliation, so that we have, for example, Alison Unterreiner, who you see in the bottom there, is the photo editor at Esquire magazine. Chris Pickler is the owner and publisher at Nazareli Press. Stella Kramer, fantastic consultant, and Julie Graham also of A Curator, that we wanted across the board, both by genre expertise, like sports, or by market expertise, agent advertising, galleries.
Right, so there's a little subtext here that, like, oh, if I get this person to review my work, then I get to put my work in front of Kathy Ryan.
Correct. Well, we talked about this yesterday. Whenever you go to portfolio review, there's always a subtext. We know that, you know that. It's, maybe I'll get discovered, et cetera. You might notice Doug Manuel there, and you might notice Todd Heido and Chase Jarvis eventually. Is that we have photographers as reviewers, and there are a couple of reasons for this. Is that particularly in the emergent market, the photographers are likely to be names that are familiar, or at least they're famous pictures. And also, while we will be concentrating later down the line on a real tech division, that if somebody asks me, for example, to help them out with their lighting, I can't answer I can't help.
But there could be a tech.
Right, and there will be a real tech post-production.
Got it.
And right.
Got it. Okay, so all right, there's an amazing cross-section of some of the best reviewers in the world, and that's presumably going to grow, and you said you're going to launch with 30 to 50.
30 to 50 we're
okay,
yeah.
World
We're
class. These are the
interviewing them
people.
now.
Yeah, these are the people that there are lines out the door to see them if you go to any sort of trade show. Okay, keep us moving.
If a photographer says, I like to learn more about a particular reviewer, there's these detailed bios, which has back references to previous reviews that they've done. It has their bios that they've submitted themselves, and it has testimonials also about their working with them.
Very cool.
I just want to draw your attention here to the bottom, which is Julie's selections for reviewer's choice. Because the review itself is very, very private, it's like going to the shrink. You don't want it like broadcast all over the web. Is that we wanted both for our own marketing and for some other reasons I'll go into what. To be able to have some public-facing part of this. And so in the course of the reviewers looking at stuff, they see something amazing, they can nominate it for Reviewer's Choice, which is a public-facing, sort of similar, continuous, like a Facebook wall, of great work that they saw. And they can say why they liked it. The people who get chosen for Reviewer's Choice will also get a badge that they can use on their social networks, on their websites, et cetera. And the reason for this is because while there are individual websites where people, your Kohlberg at Conscientious, Julie, et cetera, where they tell you what they like and they show you their taste, there is no aggregated place to look at what all the experts are liking.
This is one of the things that I love so much about it, is it's a place to go where a lot of people are getting a lot of reviews. There's a sort of a feedback loop community that's not Flickr. These are professionals looking at it. Not that, Flickr's not bad, but when you get people with no experience, they're giving you bad advice all the time. This is a way to get world-class advice, and it's aggregated under one roof. So keep us moving on to some features, if you would, Doug.
So let's say that I was interested in getting a review by Julie. I can click on, this is the dry part. This is the form where the photographer would fill out what their goals are. They would classify their work in a way that helps us match them with the reviewer. If they opt for that feature, Some photographers say, I don't know who I want to go with, help me
Match
pick a
it.
reviewer.
But remember now when I just did this review with Dylan, how like the first 5 minutes is where you go and what do you want, all that stuff. This is done now. The reviewer has this ahead of time. There are 4 kinds of reviews. They range from $100 all the way to $350 for editing and sequencing. But there's a basic review, which is you give us 30 pictures. The reviewer looks at it. They return an audio commentary within 48 hours. To bump that up to pinning them down for a live interactive review, which we'll show you later. We also do straight up editing, take my 150 images down to 30 images, and then editing in combination with sequencing of a project, et cetera.
So
and
it's sort of a la carte. You can,
a la carte. You can mix and match. I want to pick the reviewer. I want you to
it
match
starts
me.
at $100 is what
Starts
I'm
at
saying.
$100.
Okay, so to me that is the remarkable part, because if you travel to one of these shows, you fly there, you put yourself up in a hotel, then you pay the $100, or I've seen them like be $200-300 sometimes at the super high-end ones. That starts to get really, really expensive. Your travel, your lodging, blah blah blah. You're talking about $1,000+ to get your book looked at. $100. I think that's pretty sweet. So
here's a project that was uploaded. These happen to be Sally Moore's baseball pictures. Sally, thank you, is a famous art buyer out of Minneapolis. And she was reviewed by Stephen Mays, who is the managing director of 7 Photo, which is a world-class documentary agency.
Another interesting option, and we can talk more about this later, is you have the option of saying, I want to do an anonymous review. I'm a professional, I don't want to necessarily put my name out there, but I do want to get feedback from a reviewer, and that's one of the things that I can do.
And yeah, for those big time pros that are tuning in right now or pretending not to tune in, you can get your work reviewed too without having the world know about it if you're self-conscious about that. I think that's pretty interesting.
So in the case of a basic review, you would fill out the form, submit the work, and by the way, we let you upload for free. You don't have to commit any dollars to basically build your book online, and you can work with it, you can massage it to death.
Okay.
And only when you're really happy with it do you go ahead and pull the plug.
Got it.
So next, we're going to just play we're going to show you the Stephen.
Basically what happens is that if you do a non-interactive review, you're going to get a email that says, hey, we're done. Here's your review. And it's going to come up looking like this. You click on the link and it goes straight to your work. And in the lower right-hand corner of it, and it's hard to see online, but I'll zoom in a little bit, there's actually an audio player. And the people in the studio aren't going to hear the audio that's coming back, but online I'm going to go ahead and play maybe 15 seconds.
This is a highest basic review for Sally Mars, provided by Stephen Mays. I'm the managing director of 7 Photo, meanwhile also secretary to the World Press Photo Jury and various other stuff.
And I'm not sure how far Stephen got into it, but basically he goes on for about, I don't know, it's 9 or 10 minutes talking about.
Gives you oral feedback, and here's what I think about your book.
Right. Again, our own perspective in terms of the guidelines of how to conduct a review is basically that we want to get people excited about their own work and then give them something to go and do.
That's the call to action is the thing that I took most away from my time with Allegra, and I met with some other creative consultants, and basically a hit list. Go take a long walk and think about what actually means something to you. Think about how you're going to change how you're going to free yourself from the thing that you thought you wanted to be to what you really are, and how you're going to put that on the world. Like it's literally a hit list, and people like Stephen and of course Allegra and other people that are a part of this, I think they are going to do a very, very good job about giving you a hit list of stuff to go actually do, not just pie in the sky like, oh, I like your work, which is what you get if you go and see your friend or your friend's friend, or maybe even your art teacher at the community college or whatever. So
this is what Reviewer's Choice looks like.
Got it.
Again, it gets updated. It gets associated with a photographer, with a reviewer on their profile, so you can see what they like.
Okay.
And getting to the big pictures fast part, this is the only public-facing side of the website. And if you want to go in and look at what was picked as the reviewer's choice, in this case by Julie.
It's really pretty interface. Our designer is Steve Liska, out of Liska and Associates out of Chicago, and just
Yeah,
beautiful.
beautiful, clean design. I love it. So how can you show us the live
I'm gonna ask Ray to come up.
Yeah, Ray, why don't you go, and Allegra, why don't you
moving.
slide over here, yeah. And if you do have questions online for these folks, we'll be going to a Q&A as soon as they're finished demoing here in just a minute, so you can ask them at #CJLive. I will be taking a look at the internet while these guys are doing the live demo. Think of questions here in the audience. We got about 10 minutes left.
So here's the challenge, is that screen sharing's been around for decades, but the problem with screen sharing is it requires installation of software. Sometimes you got to reconfigure your routers. There's a security issue that you can't deny. But the biggest issue from my perspective is that people don't have the same size screens. If they've got a 30-inch monitor and an iPad and they want to talk about the same images at the same time, someone's going to lose that argument. So with HTML5 and some other technologies, we've created an interactive capability that's based purely on web browser technology. There are no plugins, there's no extensions, there's no installation, there's nothing. And just to prove my point, I'm going to just scroll my window around. So I'm the reviewer in New York. I can change thumbnail sizes, I can do whatever I want, and I'm not affecting what Ray's seeing in Seattle. But the moment that I hover over one of his images, I'm hovering over the third thumbnail, it highlights in blue around his. And those that are familiar
point to
with
that, Ray. So you just highlighted over here, and he's.
Yeah.
So if you let's pretend that you're in New York, and Ray's here in Seattle. He lives in Seattle. You're in New York. You're going to give a live review. This is what the screen on the right would see, and the screen on the left. So this is New York over here, Seattle over here.
Right.
You guys that way can talk about an individual image, right?
I can say, hey Ray, this image, without even clicking. I'm just saying, you know what I'm looking at because of where the blue is. He says, yeah, this image was really an interesting one for me to take, and he can hover over another image.
He doesn't have to say, the one with the lady who has the flower and the thing.
3 over and 2 down, none of that. He just simply hovers over, and I'm going to see what he's looking at.
Got it.
And the moment that I double click, or he selects, I'm going to double click, and we're looking at the same image at the same time. And if we want to go back and...
Can I get a shout out for that? I mean, technologically, that's pretty dope, right? Come on now. We're on the other side of the planet. We're across the internet right now. This is not like they're plugged in.
It's hard to convey to people just how unusual this is, because people are accustomed to seeing images fly around on the web. But the fact that we're doing it, again, with no installation, there's no setup. They just went to a URL, and now we're collaborating remotely. So remote collaboration over standard web browsers is
A lot of people are
heyday.
familiar with Google Docs or some of the mind maps and stuff where you can change text in real time, but we haven't seen it with pictures.
Yeah, in fact, one of the things Allegra was very insistent on that we incorporate into this first version is the ability to dynamically generate spreads. Because if she's looking at a printed bound book, she goes, that image needs to go with that image. All she can do is describe it when she's doing an analog review. On the web, in fact, Ray is going to go ahead right now and just randomly pick 2 images that he thinks looks good together, even though they're not sequentially organized that way now. And even though I'm in New York, I'm waiting, saying, okay, what are the 2 images you think go good together?
Sweet.
And he pulls up a spread. So I can visualize, I see what he's seeing, and that, I can't say how important that is that we share this common experience, because otherwise it is a guessing man's game.
All right, so this is like this is like a live review, a little bit more expensive, but it's just like you're sitting in the same room.
That is the idea, is that you don't lose out because I happen to be in London and you happen to be in Paris. We can do this together whenever we need to.
That's
beautiful. As Doug said to me earlier, I can't exactly replicate the in-person experience, but we believe that we can replicate the satisfaction that somebody gets from the in-person experience.
Right, and using technology to solve creative problems is one thing I'm a big fan of, which reminds me, I think we should go, using technology, go to the phones. Come on and sit back down. You want to scoot back over there just a second? So we've got like 6 minutes left. I want to take 4 of those minutes to ask a couple of questions. So about portfolios in general, we've covered a lot of ground today, a lot of ground, because in my opinion, I said this on the blog post announcing today's session, the portfolio is the most important thing in your handbook. Your personality, all that stuff, you really only get to show that to be a part of the job after your portfolio cuts the mustard. Because they don't say, he's a great guy, his pictures suck, let's bring him on anyway. Never happens. It's have great pictures, that's the get in the door fee. That's if you're in the PGA, you have to be able to hit it down the middle every time you step up. Have to have great pictures, and when you do, the rest of the personality gets to show out. So portfolio, mission critical for any professional.
And again, by portfolio, we're talking about an online portfolio or a printed
Yeah, and it's a body of works. That's why this is relevant not just to the pros out there that are trying to make $100,000. It's the folks that are trying to develop their work. Like, you need to have a constant portfolio that's evolving. So it's just as important for someone, if you're serious about photography, if you're just out there taking pictures, no biggie. But if you want to move your photography down, it's kind of like when you lift weights. I used to be able to lift 80 pounds, and now I can lift 100. If you don't have a portfolio to evolve, it's really hard to tell that your work is evolving. So I'm a big fan of the portfolio. Specifically, let's go back to IS.com. What are some things, like, are you guys anticipating any flack from the industry? And if so, how are you guys prepared to smack it back?
Well, listen, we have an enormous positive response from reviewers. We do compensate reviewers, which is sort of a not necessarily regular thing that occurs in the in-person world. And up until now, we haven't had anything but a real embrace of the necessity of this. I mean, I think a lot of people thought somebody else must be doing it, when then we just did it.
I love that, because there's a number of tweets that are pouring in right now. One from D. Bickley that said, "When will IS move into beta? Because I'm dying to give them my money." So give us a date. We've got about 3 minutes left, and I got a couple of things to do before we go. So when are we going to start seeing and smelling and feeling this from you, Doug?
There's a show in LA that we're going to be
Photo
doing.
LA.
Yeah,
Yes.
Photo LA. We're going to be doing live beta there, meaning
Okay.
we're going to be recruiting people and turning on the switch for the beta group.
Great.
If things go as planned, we're going to be live before the end of the quarter.
Beautiful. Love to hear that. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I had a couple of little housekeeping tidbits here. I want to thank Polaroid for making this whole thing possible, B&H for supplying us with a lot of the gear that it takes to make this happen. So kudos to those folks. We have some winners of the folks that have been tweeting what's been said here today, and they're going to get, there's 3 people. This is the physical review, and then 2 IS reviews of the basic variety. And Jesse Michener, can you come closer? Jesse Michener, the only thing you can't appropriate is what's in your gut. Beautiful. At Kelly Sauer, as soon as you try to please everybody, you usually end up pleasing nobody, especially yourself. Props. So these 2 folks are going to get the IS online review when that comes out. And then at Noble Andrews, don't worry, you chicken, I'm not going to screw up your job. That, they get to meet you in person because you said that. So congratulations to our winners. Thank you so much. We will send a signed Polaroid that I shot with this brand new, first ever digital and analog Polaroid camera, the Z340. You'll see more about that on my blog later. Signing some Polaroids and sending them out to the folks who won the earlier contest. And phew! Right, how you doing, man? I'm good. Good. Thank you so much for tuning in. Any questions? We got like probably 1 minute left from the audience.
Yes.
Yep, shoot.
It depends on what kind of
The question
work you want.
The question was, does a photographer have to be a filmmaker? And the answer is?
Depends on what kind of work you want to do. More and more, certainly with editorial and advertising content, you need to make your pictures move.
Yep, you heard it first here. You may have heard it before a couple times, but we just like to say you heard it first here because it makes us feel self-important.
I don't know, but if you're CNN, you can they're just using iReporters.
That's
now.
right. CNN fired everybody. So I want to say thank you so much to everyone who joined us. Dylan, I don't know where you are in the house. Dylan, back there, thanks for sitting through the where she was prodding you and poking you with your great portfolio. We're going to sit around and talk about portfolios a little bit longer and entertain some more questions from the online audience. But for those folks on the internet, thank you so much again. Happy birthday to my nephew, Ryder. Very, very excited for you, my little buddy. You're right here. I hope you're watching. And if you do go to a blog called Chase Jarvis blog, if you look up here, it's like chasejarvis.com/live is right there, and blog is right over there. There's an interesting blog post that I just hit send on while we were doing this. I said hit send electronically to post just a few minutes ago that shows photographs of 2-year-olds smoking. It's very, very alarming and startling, and it'll make you look twice. So go check that out. Without that, I got to point to the new blog post, and oh yeah, the rewatch of this is going to happen at Polaroid.com. Keep an eye on my personal Twitter feed at ChaseJarvis to give you more information there later today. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. All right.
The rhythm be working up on me. the new to the old to